Hello chess friends and welcome to your out of chess channel and welcome to an incredible game that I found recently on the official CCRL Chessdom website. We have here Pedone versus Stockfish in the beautiful Cambridge Springs defense of the Queen's Gambit decline. And the cool part about this game is that we'll see again the Stockfish engine battling it out with the black pieces. So we'll see now the best chess engine playing one of the best openings, because I think really the Cambridge Springs defense is one of the best methods to beat d4. And the cool part is also that we have started recently on my YouTube chess channel our mini series about the Cambridge Springs defense from black's perspective. So if you're searching maybe for a good opening against d4, I think the Cambridge Springs defense is powerful, and we'll continue also to follow different lines, different opportunities for both sides. But as I said, you can maybe use this game as your cornerstone, as your starting understanding of the Cambridge Springs defense, and of course you can improve it with some other sidelines and with other possibilities. So let's see now the game. Really incredible stuff. Be prepared. It was again chess from another dimension. So here the Pedone engine opened with the move d4. Stockfish response was the move d5, and after move c4 we have now the move c6. And don't get surprised by this move order. You can get this Cambridge Springs defense out of the Queen's Gambit decline. You can get it out of the barman variation. You can get it out of many structures. So first we'll get this setup, and then of course we'll explain the most important strategic concepts of this setup. So here in the continuation we have now knight to c3, knight to f6 by Stockfish, and now the game transposes into the three knights variation. We have now the move e6, which is now the semi-Slav setup, and now after move bishop to g5, which creates of course this annoying pin. Stockfish delays now again the bishop's move, which is also something that I would recommend you don't play with the bishop so far. First you develop the knight with the move knight to d7, and now after move e3 now comes the Cambridge Springs move, which is now this aggressive method with the move queen to a5. And the idea is clear. We are trying to get the move bishop to b4. We are trying also to compete in the center of the board. We're trying to get this move knight to e4, which creates really enormous pressure against the knight on c3. And the cool part about this setup, knight to d7, knight to f6, is of course that if black get challenged with the move bishop to f6, then you don't have to recapture with the g pawn. You can always recapture with this other knight, so you're not threatened to get this messed up pawn structure. You see the queen play is now freely, and this is in my opinion, as I said, one of the best methods to beat the d4 play. So in the continuation we have now c takes d5 by Pedone, which is also something that I would recommend for white to do. White needs really to release a little bit the pressure, because the tension is enormous here around the square c3, and you don't want to have of course a further tension also around the square d5 c4. So that's why many times white simply releases the pressure in the center of the board. So now after move knight to d5, which is also something that I would recommend you here to do with the black pieces, because if you play e takes d5, then of course a3 b4 could happen and the queen has to step back. Now on the other hand, when you take out with the knight, you are continuing with your normal plan. You're continuing with the pressure against the knight on c3, and you are threatening also now the move bishop to b4. In the continuation we have now queen to d2. Stockfish continues with the pressure with the move bishop to b4, rook to c1, and now Stockfish plays immediately knight to c3, releases now really the pressure a little bit here around the square c3. After b takes c3, now comes this very common move. We have discussed also this move in our mini series. Bishop to a3 creates of course a tempo against the rook, and now after move rook to b1, again a move that I would again really suggest you to do here, b6, because in this particular setup we have, as I said, talked about these ideas in our mini series of the Cambridge Springs defense. In this setup, I think every piece is good. You see the queen is active, bishop active, knight has still a flexibility to jump all over the board. But we can agree, I think, that the bishop on c8 is not good. So that's why with the move b6 and bishop to a6, we're trying to get rid of our worst piece on the board. So that's why here with the move bishop to a6, we're announcing really a solid game. So in the continuation, we have now bishop to f4. And the bishop to f4 prevents also very important strategic concepts of black, which is now the move e5. White has of course this powerful center with the move c3, d4, e3, still has this very nice central control. So that's why this pawn chain needs to be broken somewhere. So that's why we're trying many times from black perspective the move e5 or the move c5. So that's why here in the continuation, bishop to f4 was now the last move by Pedone. Although there is an interesting line that white can do, so we should also of course suggest best moves for both sides, I think, because we cannot just analyze the game for one side. I think an interesting line here for white is the move queen to d3, because it prevents now the move bishop to a6. So you see, white is controlling now the long diagonal, is preventing black to make the move, and now of course black has to develop the bishop on b7, which is a little bit strange, which is of course not so good because the bishop is a little bit paralyzed by its own pawn. But if that happens, we can play of course h6, kingside castling. We can maybe break the position immediately, or we can play now the move kingside castling. It's in my opinion one of the best methods. After something like bishop to e2, maybe white prepares now kingside castling. We can play rook to e8, and now we still can, I think, prepare this aggressive method with the move e5, or later also with the move c5. So, okay, this is a solid game, I think, for both sides. This is maybe a position that you should study harder for yourself at home. So, let's see now this particular line. So, in the game, bishop to f4 was played by Pedone, and here Stockfish announced again this idea. Bishop to e7, bishop to f6, and again this aggressive method e5. So Stockfish is trying really to break the position in the center of the board. So we have now the move c4 by Pedone. Pedone is battling for the e5 square with the idea to trade off the queens with the move c4. Stockfish accepts the challenge, queen to d2. We have knight takes d2, and now e5 immediately. Stockfish sacrifices a pawn in an early stage of the game, which is really, really wild. After d takes e5, we have now knight to c5, and Stockfish is saying now, I blocked out your bishop out. Okay, you grabbed the pawn, but now your bishop is paralyzed. On the other hand, I will get my bishop here. I will have a control of light squares, and now you see the bishop is also here good. The bishop on e7 is controlling also now very powerful diagonal. So in the continuation, we have now f3, we have now g5, hitting the bishop, bishop to g3, bishop to f5 hits of course the rook, and of course you can cover this with the move e4, but this move bishop to f5 is a provocative move by Stockfish, because Stockfish wanted here the Pedone engine to play the move e4, but now you see the pawn structure gets more and more static. You cannot really create some madness, because in the near future I think black would, white would love to play now the move f4 in order to control further here the king side. But now with the move e4, okay, we're stepping back. But look at this now. The bishop on g3 is blocked out by its own pawn. This bishop on f1 is blocked out by its own pawn. On the other hand, black has really good control with both of these bishops. Okay, black lost a pawn, but I think the piece activity that Stockfish gained out of this gambit line is a good compensation. So in the continuation, after move bishop to e6, we have now knight to b3, queenside castling by Stockfish, knight takes c5, and after bishop to c5, we have bishop to e2. We have now bishop to d4, and as I said, okay, you get your pawn, but here's it's almost like Stockfish is saying, I have a better piece activity. I have also something here that I think can be useful. It's of course this pawn majority. We have a 3 versus 2 situation on the queen side. So maybe in a potential endgame we can get a pass pawn out of this. So you see this bishop on g3 is bad. So it's almost like these 3 pawns of blacks are controlling somehow these 5 pawns of whites on the king side. So on the other hand, I think we can really create some dynamics here on the queen side. So really strange but powerful idea, I think, here by Stockfish. Really a beautiful opening line. So in the continuation, h4, Pedone is trying to get somehow some pieces into the game. Stockfish is of course not allowing this scenario. Plays now the move h6, king to f1. We have now the move c5, really cementing this bishop on the square d4. In the continuation, rook to b3 was played. You see this move c5 is also paralyzing the pawn on c4. It makes of course this bishop much worse. It makes it always dependent here to the square c4, so the bishop cannot play freely on this side of the board, because also this pawn is weak. So I think it's a great compensation here by Stockfish for the lost pawn. So king to b7, bishop to d3, rook to g8, h takes g, and now king to e2. We have now rook to h8. Stockfish is trying to simplify the game by trading off at least one of these rooks. So Stockfish would love, of course, come somehow with one of these rooks behind, maybe on the second rank, maybe on the first rank. So that's why rook to h8. We have now rook to d1, and now rook to h5. Here rook to h7, king to d2, rook to h8. We have now king to c2, bishop to d7, bishop to king to b3, bishop to e6, and now of course the serious threat is now the move b5. b5 could create, I think, really some tactical opportunities, especially if you manage even to play a6, b5, king to c6, maybe get this rook on the on the a file. So it's, I think, very also a nice strategic opportunity, especially because of the fact that white cannot compete on the a file because of this powerful bishop's activity. So in the continuation, we have now king to c2, we have rook to h5, bishop to e2, and now Stockfish is searching for opportunities. We have now a4, king to c6, king to d2. It's a tough endgame. We cannot say this is obviously winning for black. Black has a better activity, but it's really, really hard to win these endgames because sometimes when you're worst, and I think we can agree that white is slightly worse in this particular position, sometimes it's even best to not touch anything. Just wait for your opponent to make something, then you will find maybe your defensive solution, because here the Pedone engine tried to provoke somehow some weaknesses in black's camp, but that was maybe even the worst mistake, because after king to c2, we have now rook to h6. Here Stockfish again plays a couple of moves, king to b3, rook to g8, bishop to d3. So you see, so far Pedone is not forcing this position, but after king to d8, bishop to e2, king to e8, here bishop to f1, we have rook to h1. Now Stockfish is announcing that maybe some of these pieces could be traded. We have now bishop to d3, and now again Stockfish retreat. So it's a really sort of cat and mouse play. Stockfish is still waiting for the perfect moment to get the pieces into the game. We have bishop to f1, king to e7, bishop to d3, rook to h5. Now after a couple of moves, here the Stockfish engine plays now rook to b8, rook to b3, and now after rook to d8, king to a3. And here slowly but surely Pedone is announcing that it would love to try somehow maybe a b file attack with the idea rook to b1, and then maybe to break and enter with move a5, playing sort of a minority attack here on the queen side, trying to get somehow some kind of an attack on the b file. And Stockfish sent some blood here, because Stockfish retreated first to h8. We have rook to b1, bishop to d7, rook to d1. We have bishop to c8, bishop to e2, and now after rook to h6, we have now the move a5. Finally, Pedone has decided to break the position. But let's see now what happens if you play again solid moves, if you don't force this position. If you play rook to b1, then I think things can really become strange, because again rook to h8 can happen, rook to b3, and now after maybe a couple of trades of rooks here, actually with bishop to b7, this could be now very strange game again for white, because white's rook is always paralyzed to the first rank. If in any case white leaves the protection of the first rank, then of course black is coming on the first rank through the h file. So it's, I think, sort of a position where white is paralyzed. Many of these pieces cannot play. The bishop on g3 cannot play. The bishop on e2 cannot play. So again, I'm not saying this is completely winning, but it's a strange way now to play the game from white's perspective. It's too pressured position. It's sort of a Zugzwang position already here for white. So maybe this was the way to go for Pedone. I'm not sure, because this position has to be, I think, let be analyzed really in a deeper way by some top engines. But still, as I said, in my opinion, this move a5 was a too rush move. You're opening the position because and you're much worse in the position. That was, I think, Pedone's main mistake in the game, a5, and of course Stockfish uses now this moment and breaks the position immediately with his powerful piece activity. Pay good attention how Stockfish will perform now really immortal tactical shots. So after move a5, Stockfish plays now rook to h8. We have now rook to b1, and it seems so that black is lost because there is simply too much pressure around the square b6. But now Stockfish plays a beautiful move, bishop to e6. Leaves even here this pawn on b6 unprotected, because look what happens if you play now 8x b6. If you play 8x b6, then you get the stunning 8x b6. And if you play rook to b6, now the monster move comes rook to a8. You have to step back here to b3. You have to disconnect your rooks, and now comes the stunner bishop to d7. It's winning the game, because you have to now grab the rook. Look at this, but now after bishop to a4, you get checkmated by this beautiful activity of this bishop pair and of this beautiful rook on the a file. So you see, Stockfish prepared here really a dirty tactical trap on the b file. You can never really take out the pawn on b6. Really immortal tactical shot. So after move bishop to e6 here, Pedone realized the tactical threats by Stockfish, simply retreated here to f1. Really wild stuff. So here rook to h1, again played by Stock. Sorry, we're not going to answer that. Okay, here after rook to h1, sorry about that, really. Rook to h1, again, Pedone doesn't have time to pick up the pawn on b6. That's really beautiful. You don't have time to grab this annoying pawn, because after a takes b6, rook to b6, again, you get this idea, rook to a8, king to b3, and now bishop to d7 threatens, again, this annoying check, and you lose, I think, decisive material here. So really, really beautiful, beautiful tactical shot. So here the continuation, as we said, bishop to e6, rook to h1, bishop to d3, king to d2, here king to h2, and now rook takes b1, rook takes b1, and finally the king comes closer. This is now the position that I think Stockfish wanted to get. We have here an open position finally on the queen side, because Pedone played the move a5, forced a little bit the position on the queen side. We have the activity on the h file, but we have also the powerful bishop pair, and we are threatening now the move b5, which of course creates a tactical threat here on this long diagonal against the king on a2. So too much pressure. Everything is working, I think, here just in black's favor. So in the continuation, rook to b3, rook to d8, we have now bishop to f1, king to c7. After a couple of more moves, now comes the stunner of the game, bishop to f2, sacrificing the bishop, bishop to f2, and now the rook comes in a beautiful way into the game, rook to d2. If you play, of course, rook to b2, then we have this stunner, rook takes e2, after rook takes e2, bishop to c4, hits, of course, the king and the rook, and of course, with this 3 versus 1 situation on the queen side, this should be, I think, a comfortable endgame here for white. So in the continuation, after rook to d2, we have now king to b1. Stockfish grabs now this bishop on e2. This bishop has to step back, and now after bishop to c4, we have now rook to c3, bishop to a2 comes with check. We have king to c1, rook takes g2, and now after rook to c2, rook takes c2, king to c2, we have now reached this endgame. It is an opposite color bishop's endgame, but this is winning for black, because here Stockfish is showing how to really play against his pawn storms, against the pawn majority. Stockfish plays now a beautiful g4 move. g4, of course, deflects this pawn from the f file, because here after a couple of attacks, we have now this idea, f takes g4, and look at this. After move bishop to e6, one pawn is holding here 3 pawns of white. On the other hand, Stockfish will connect these 2 pawns. Stockfish will create a situation where black is here 2 connected passers. That's, I think, the beautiful setup here. And of course, it's, as I said, opposite color bishops endgame, but it's completely winning here for black. Really, really beautiful endgame tactics. So king to c6, we have king to c3, bishop to e6, g5, b5. So now the pawns are marching, b4, king to d2, and actually in this position, Pedone even resigns. So we'll just advance this pawn to a6, keeping it on the light square. So that's the way to go, I think. a6, keeping the pawn where it cannot be attacked by the dark square bishop, and now we get with our king closer. We'll simply get after this pawn, we can, I think, also grab it in the near future. c3, b3 is going to happen with the support of the bishop. One of these pawns will get promoted, and the cool part is, as I said, this bishop and the pawn are holding these 3 pawns, so no mobility is possible here on the king side. So this is now completely here winning for black. So incredible, immortal game here by Stockfish 15. Really wild stuff in the Cambridge Springs defense. This was a beautiful opening theory game. I think you can use it maybe as your cornerstone. As I said, you can maybe start from this game and then, of course, add some other opportunities for both sides. We will continue to follow this Cambridge Springs defense. If you want to see more about this opening, please check out our previous 2 videos about this opening line. Here are the links of our mini series about the Cambridge Springs defense. I think you can have really an opening for a lifetime against d4. And if you want to see maybe some other cool games played by Stockfish and also by some other top engines, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.